Senator McDonald.
I'd like to speak to the motion, Mr Deputy Chairman. This is another outrageous abuse by the Labor Party of the whole Senate practice. Now, Mr President, in case people don't know, I am the chair of the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Legislation Committee, and I'm told by Senator Collins, I mean, nobody's bothered to tell me as chair of this committee or deputy chair of the References Committee that apparently the chair of the References Committee, Senator Wright, has resigned. I mean, no one's had the courtesy to tell me as deputy chair, and now I am apparently the acting chairman of the References Committee and chairman of the Legislation Committee. Now, this motion, just arranged by or just announced by Senator Collins, sets up a meeting without any consultation with me as the acting chair, apparently, and with other colleagues about their diaries for today and their timetables and their requirements for today. Now, this is just outrageous and brings the Senate committee system into abject disrepute. You might recall, Mr President, that this Monis letter, the subject of the References Committee, was a matter that the Legislation Committee was dealing with as a result of evidence that came up in the Estimates Committee at the last estimates hearings. There was a request from 2 Labor and 1 Democrat senators to have a spillover specifically on the matter of the Monis letters. And the Legislation Committee has dealt with that and has set down, or is about to set down, hearings for that particular matter. Now, because the Greens support the Labor on everything, all of their dodgy deals, and unfortunately the crossbenchers, I don't think, care about these things because they're just matters of committee. But unfortunately, with crossbench and Green support, the References Committee was then given the same reference, and given the whole inquiry that the Legislation Committee had properly already before its sides. Now, I do say to the crossbenchers that I know these aren't matters of great consequence to you, and they're just more political games by the ALP. But somewhere along the line we have to draw the line. We have to say enough is enough. If the Senate committee system is going to mean anything at all, then we have to do this regularly. Now, I haven't even seen the motion that Senator Collins just moved. She just showed it to me when I went to tell her a minute ago that because I thought there were going to be a lot of divisions early, I've changed the scheduled meeting of the Legislation Committee, which was set down for 9:30. Just went to tell Senator Collins, instead of having it in 1S6, we're going to have it outside here, so we're available to come in if there are divisions. And it was then that Senator Collins, for the first time, shows me this amended motion before the chair. Now, I'm not sure what I saw, but I think I saw that Senator Lazarus was about to be appointed the chair of the Legal and Constitutional Affairs References Committee. Now, those positions usually go to the Labor Party. Occasionally the Labor Party allows them to go to the Greens, as happened in this case. And now we're going to, apparently, according to a motion by the Labor Party, have as chair an independent senator who is a nice guy, has taken absolutely no interest in the Legal and Constitutional Affairs committees of this parliament, who has taken no apparent interest in the Monis letters, and suddenly this person, so I'm told, is about to be appointed by a majority as chair. Now, I'll have to have a look at where the numbers lie on that committee now, because with Senator Wright having resigned, it may be that, you know, the voting. What's the standing order?
Order. Senator McDonald, you have the call.
Well, thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President. But Mr. President, I'm sorry. This sort of activity, just as I say, brings not only the Senate committee system but the Senate generally into disrepute. Now, as I understand the motion, I still don't have a copy of it before me. Oh, sorry, I do. It's just been provided. The motion says that the Legal and Constitutional Affairs References Committee be required to hold a private meeting today, 25th of June, otherwise in accordance with Standing Order 33, immediately following the adjournment of the scheduled Legislation Committee meeting, or at 11 a.m, whichever is the earliest. And the agenda for the References Committee shall be the election of the new chairman of the committee. Well, I'm sorry. You know why I'm reading this out? Because it's the first time I've had the opportunity of seeing it. I, as the deputy chairman of the relevant committee, it's the first time I've had it. It goes on to say, deliberation of the committee's progress on its inquiry into the handling of a letter by Mr Harmon Monis to the Attorney-General, including the letter dated the 24th of June 2015 from Mr Thorley, Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, and received by the committee on the 24th of June. So apparently we're going to elect a new chair and we're going to deliberate on the committee's progress on its inquiry into the Monis letter. Well, that shouldn't take very long because there's been absolutely no progress. What we've had is 2 committee hearings so far where officers of the department are being required to give to the exact minute when they made a phone call 3 months ago. And I've been critical of them because they've been able to give a minute of when they got the thing, but they haven't been able to give a second. And this committee is so outrageous that these public officials are being asked to 3 or 4 months later, say exactly what minute of the day they actually went to the toilet, they blew their nose, and they happened to make a phone call to someone else. I mean, it is outrageous. There is a standing convention. There is a standing convention, of course, that the secretaries of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet do not appear before committees. In this instance, that doesn't really matter because the Deputy Secretary, who was principally involved in this inquiry, certainly Mr Thorley as the nominated person had an oversight and released the report, but his 2IC, who knows everything, has been, I wouldn't say grilled, I mean the questioning was a bit like a lettuce leaf, except when I demanded that he give the second rather than just the minute. And yes, but it shows how stupid the whole thing was. Was the phone call at 8:55 or 8:56 or 8:57? And because the officials couldn't quite remember, they're berated by members of the Labor Party. Mr Deputy President,
on my left.
So deliberation on the progress of this committee's inquiry won't take long because there's been no progress. What Senator Brandis said in the Estimates Committee hearing and then corrected in one small area, immediately he was able, has all been there on the public record for weeks, for months, and yet this committee has sat for, this References Committee has sat for 2 days already just going over and over and over and over the same things. And this abuse of the process again continues today. Now, Mr Deputy President, somewhere along the line, this Senate has to get the Senate committee system back to the times when it was respected, when it operated properly, when it operated with cooperation between all senators, because we were doing good things.
On my left.
We were doing good things. Now they have turned into, and I'm sorry that Senator Lazarus seems to be tied up in this, because you'll recall that Queensland committee, the reference of the Newman government to be investigated by a select committee which Senator Lazarus chaired. You recall, Mr President, that was a committee set up with, notwithstanding that the government has by far the biggest number of senators in this chamber, the government had one senator on that committee, the Labor Party had two, the Greens had one, and Senator Lazarus was the other one. So of a five-member committee, the government had one member. So that brought the Senate into disrepute. It was an absolute farce, that committee. Nothing came out of it. Nothing was achieved. There was no new information came out, and it was just a waste of the senators' time and the Senate's and the taxpayers' money. Now, Mr Deputy President, there have been a couple of other instances, and this is another one, purely political. And once the Senate adopts this, what seems to be an increasing situation by the Labor Party, that we will run these committees for purely partisan political purposes, or to give one of their allies the additional resources that comes with the chairmanship of a committee. And as I say, the chairman is a person who, to my knowledge, has taken absolutely no interest in this matter at all. Hasn't attended an estimates committee, hasn't, as a participating member, attended any of the other committees, and yet, as I understand, of course, I'm only someone's mentioned this to me, but I'm assuming the suggestion is that this crossbench senator will become the new chair. Now, Mr Deputy President, this motion that we're dealing with now continues the time for presentation of the report on the handling of the letter sent by Mr Harmon Monis to the Attorney-General be extended to the 12th of August. Well, again, Mr President, this committee should have been able to report 5 minutes after it started, but it's now being extended to the 12th of August. I've got no indication of what that's about. There's been no argument by the mover of the motion as to the reason for this. The committee was supposed to report today, and I would have hoped that the committee would have had its report circulated to the committee members, as is usual. Certainly, those of us who suspect what the chair's report might be have taken the precaution of getting a dissenting report ready for tabling today in accordance with the procedures of the Senate. Now, Mr Deputy President, again, changing these things without notice to other members of the committee on 10 seconds' notice is not the way that this chamber should operate. It's not the way the Senate committee system has operated in years gone by, and it distresses me, as someone who's been in this place a long time, who's seen the good work that Senate committees have done, very often in a bipartisan way, very often correcting legislation and actions of governments, be they Liberal governments or be they Labor governments, because the committees have investigated various areas and looked into them as they should, made recommendations which both Liberal and Labor governments have in fact accepted as being a sensible addition to the debate on these issues. And yet, in recent times, you have this sort of dodgy dealing that is evidenced by this motion today. Now, Mr Deputy President, does it matter that I and other members of the committee have other material on, other things planned for 11 o'clock today? Does it matter? Did it matter, of course, that when this committee first sat, the committee members, the majority of the committee, picked a day that they knew I would be in Cairns with the launch of the North Australian policy, and they knew that Senator Reynolds, the other member of this committee, the other regular member of this committee, would have been in Amberley with the Defence Committee on a long-standing commitment. They knew that, so they set it down for that day where government senators would not be available. Now, fortunately, we were able at short notice to get another senator, one senator only, to fill in. But that sort of activity is just brings the whole system into disrepute and means that the cooperation that's needed to run this chamber and this Senate is rapidly dissipating. Now, I suspect that one of the decisions of this committee, and I've got no notice of this, but I suspect they will probably want to have a hearing tomorrow. You know why? Because they know that tomorrow is the Federal Council of the Liberal Party, and they know that all Liberal senators will be in Melbourne for the Federal Council. So, well, if you didn't know that, you should ask Senator Dastyari. He's the one with all the intelligence, although that's mainly within the Labor Party, isn't it? Not outside. But look, Mr. Deputy President, this sort of procedure is a sad indictment of where the Senate has gone. And when I
Order.
No, that's right.
Be careful what you tell standing votes.
Senator McDonald, you have the call.
Yeah, we need to get on.
Yeah. So, Mr Deputy President, as I say, I'm sad that the Senate has come to this. The Greens political party are no Democrats, I have to say. At least the Democrats used to follow some of the norms of this chamber and some of the procedures that made the place work. Mr Deputy President, this is an outrageous abuse of the proceedings of the Senate.